Leading on actually from my previous video that I've made that should be coming out today as well, just talking really about this sort of fickleness that you see in boxing really, and giving an example of something I've been seeing thrown around a lot. Now it's about the Tyson Fury versus David Haye fight. I say Tyson Fury Haye, maybe I'm showing a little bit of bias myself. At the time obviously it was Haye Fury, and I remember that fight very well. It's been brought up a lot. I believe it Michael Benson brought it up, possibly. I know Ade's brought it up, and I think Sky Sports have mentioned it, and I think possibly like Rob Tebbett. It's been a massive thing on Twitter anyway, about a debate of who would have won that fight. Hatman's brought it up as well actually. So it's become a little bit of a discussion. And I think it's a really good place to talk about, actually, a really sort of a good fight to highlight, because it really does highlight the fickleness of boxing fans. Now, I remember when that fight was announced in 2013, yeah, it was 2013, and when I say 95% of people are picking Haye, I mean, I think 95% is downplaying it, actually. No one was picking Fury. Absolutely nobody. And you've got to remember at that point, Haye was coming off, the Chisora win, whereas Fury was coming off the Cunningham fight. And I think people forget that, where Fury had started to look a little bit vulnerable. He'd fought Nevin Pikage and been put down. He'd fought, obviously, Steve Cunningham and got put down very heavily in that fight. Whereas, obviously, David Haye had looked destructive against Derek Chisora. And obviously had a common opponent, and people sort of considered, although Fury's win was more dominant, David Haye's ended in more spectacular fashion, and David Haye being probably the biggest casual magnet for British boxing fans ever, I would say. I mean, I'd say even more casual than the Anthony Joshua fans you got now. And just to be clear, this is mentioning as if what we knew then rather than what we know now. It's not who would you have picked based on what Tyson's gone on to do and what ended up happening to David Haye. It's back then, who did you think was going to win, sort of thing. That was the whole basis of the question. And everyone is now saying, oh, no, I always thought Tyson would have done it, he was so much bigger, great boxing ability, but at the time no one was saying that. It was unanimous in Haye's favour. And now the same people that were absolutely unanimous in Haye's favour are now flipping it round and saying, oh no, well, I never really rated Haye anyway. I think, Tyson would have just been too big, too strong, Haye was only a little cruiserweight, all this sort of thing. And as I say, it's when taking into perspective not what they've done since then, and not how David Haye's career dropped off a cliff and how obviously Fury went massively on the ascendancy. It's to take into account where they were. And as I say, I just find it remarkable because everyone's, most people are just lying through their teeth about how they really felt about that fight. I mean, I remember at the time, that fight was viewed by the boxing public as a gross mismatch. I mean, there were people questioning why it was even being made. It was legitimately seen as a gross mismatch. I think we forget just a couple of years prior, really, Fury was actually seen as a joke of a prospect. Everyone thought, everyone was raving about David Price. David Price was when they conducted a poll, I think I remember it. I do remember. I remember a poll being conducted. This was about 2010, 2011, and it was between Fury and Price of who would win. And it was legitimately about 85% David Price. It was insane. So it just goes to show how fickle fans are. And as I say, it's the same thing we've seen with Joshua. I mean, Joshua got beaten by Ruiz. Everyone jumped off the hype train. And then Joshua wins again in dominant fashion in the rematch. And suddenly everyone's back on the train. So I just think it's interesting and amusing to see sort of how the wider boxing public responded to that question. Because as I say, I remember at the time, how far it was literally seen as a gross mismatch. So it's very interesting to see how now everyone's sort of adjusted their responses and pretending that no, they always thought Fury was going to be the next big thing, when in truth, I remember really up until the Vladimir Klitschko performance, I mean, Tyson Fury was taken as a bit of a novelty act. Nobody, I say nobody, I mean the wider boxing public didn't take him seriously and didn't really think he was even going to make it past European level, let alone get anywhere near world honours. So it is quite interesting to see how fickle and sort of flippant the fans are. So let me know what you think, and take care.